Cool. All right. Can you guys hear me okay? GM. All right, cool. All right, we got a packed call today. I know we're going to go over a lot of stuff. Looking forward to it. It's been a while since we had a nice DAO call. Golden Cross, how you doing, sir?
Check 1 2. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, first DAO call of the new year, right?
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah, beautiful.
Check out the mirror board here that we got from Hardcore, and I guess Hefe is going to be able to make it. There he is. Hey, GM, sir.
I hear Hefe sound effects.
Yeah. Here's some zipping.
Shuffling. See no futuristic in the house. Quick shout out. I saw the announcement he put out about what is it called? Gotchi
News.
Gotchi News, yeah. Clever name. Catchy, right to the point. Looking forward to where that goes through.
Got a nice looking site too. Hey, sir. GM.
My apologies. My stuff was all over the place. My mom got in a car accident yesterday. So so spending my day. She's doing good. You know, the car saved her life. You know, took most of the impact. She's doing fine. So that's good. But I had to spend most of my day dealing with that. So that's why like my equipment was all like put away and stuff. So we're good now. We're back, and everything is everything is good. So I'm ready.
That's always super scary, that kind of stuff, and just glad it worked out as good as it could given the circumstance.
Yeah, the car took the brunt. That's what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have a big meeting today. It's pretty packed today. So we can go through an agenda. Let me just get my stream going here. But I'm looking forward to our meeting today. There we go. ZombieShepherd, did you drop the live stream in the chat there? Is that already down there? Yeah, nice. GM everyone. All right. Oh. Yeah, okay. Good. Yeah, how are you guys doing this morning? Sorry, I kind of came in and interrupted. You guys were discussing something.
Oh, doing well. Just been got some XP shipped today. We're using this new service called well, not really new service. We've used it before, but we're using it for XP, called Open Zeppelin Defender, and it kind of helps automate the process a little bit. So it's definitely, it was smoother to send out XP today than in the past. We're gonna continue optimizing that and hopefully get it where it's more automated. But it's pretty tall order, really.
Yeah, it'll be nice to get it automated one day, or maybe even the DAO can manage some of it one day when the time is right.
Yeah, I think that's very possible actually with the Defender, or not for today's call, but at some point I would love to have a discussion about the on-chain voting, because at some point in the first quarter here, we really need to make some big decisions as a DAO on voting power and how we want to actually start moving towards on-chain voting. But it's not on the agenda today, so can't cover it. But maybe next meeting.
Yeah, for sure. We'll put it on the docket. Right on. Sounds good. Some people are saying they got their XP. That's awesome. Okay, so if you guys are watching the live stream here, kind of we're going to try and work off a template here moving forward for the rest of the year. And so the Miro template will just kind of be like aesthetically, everything will look the same, and it'll also be easier for you guys to keep track of where we are on specific issues. And so if you look over here, Hardcore and I, we've put together a legend. And so we're going to try and stick to this format. We're going to try it out for a couple weeks. We're going to see how it goes. And, you know, we'll get some feedback from y'all in a couple weeks and see if this is working for us. So basically, we're going to have these different shapes here kind of representing different types of media formats. So if you look around on the Miro board, you'll see green circles. These are references to audio recordings. If you're looking at the yellow circles, you're looking at text, like text references. And then if you see like a red circle, that's most likely going to be like a recorded video or something. So these are just some things you can click on the board to add context to any conversations we might be having. And then the other part of that is you'll see these shapes here. We have some triangles, we got some arrows, got some stars. And what these do, we've labeled them so you know what they mean. But basically, when we start with an issue, it's going to show up in a square, you know, just the text boxes you're all used to seeing. We're going to discuss the issue. If we don't really come to a conclusion in this discussion, just so we know, we discussed it, but we haven't really actioned anything on it. We haven't actually moved on that item. The next week, you'll see a yellow triangle next to that item, and you'll know because you'll see the yellow triangle. We've discussed it already last week. The discussion has already begun, but we now need to actually do something with that discussion. And so it'll be a way for us to look at what we've discussed and what we haven't really actioned. And so, you know, every time we introduce a new topic, it'll come up as just like the regular text box that you see. And then, you know, the subsequent week, that same topic is going to have a yellow triangle next to it. So you know we talked about it last week. And we'll try to actually link audio and other previously recorded content to that segment as well, in case you missed it. And then you'll see these triangles. These arrows. One of these arrows says PC in motion. One of these has DAO in motion. And so we just kind of wanted to separate a little bit the things that DAO is working on and the things Pixelcraft is working on that maybe we need an answer on so we can move forward with a specific topic. And so just to separate those two things. And then, of course, stars. Stars are when things are done. So when the DAO ships something, you know, we've discussed something to the point where the proposal passed, we've shipped the whatever we discussed, it's going to be a star. Same thing with Pixelcraft. When we've come through, we've discussed an issue, we've actually moved past the actionable phase, and you know the item has been resolved or it's been shipped, it's going to be a star, and we know that we can put that topic to rest. And so it'll give Hardcore and I a method to filter out topics throughout the weeks and chain topics together. So as we move from something that's been discussed to something that needs to be actionable, we can actually keep track of that. So that's part of what this legend is going to be, and we're going to experiment with it. We kind of made it simple to start. And the other thing you'll see is above each topic, you'll see stickies. And we encourage you, we want to kind of move away slowly from me referencing the chat all the time for taking your questions. I don't mind doing it, but I think what happens sometimes is during our discussions, some of the questions don't get answered, or some of the concerns or whatever, they might get missed because it's a lot to keep track of while you're actually doing the stream. And so you can just pick up a sticky. They're right at the top there, and you can actually type your question in, and I'll make sure I keep an eye on the Miro board. And if I see your question pop up above that topic, I'll know to address your question right there. So that's going to be something that might take a little bit of, habit building for people to start using, but I think we could be really productive with that, and also make sure that all our questions and concerns are getting documented on the Miro boards. So yeah, exactly. And we've labeled that right here. Put your best ideas, comments, and concerns on notes. So that's going to be our template format. Shout out to Thrax for doing the DAO brand kit. So we're gonna try and keep everything uniform here. The newsletter, the live streams, the Miro board. We're gonna try and keep everything aesthetically looking similar, and so it's all coming from the DAO. So these are some of the things we're gonna kick off the year with, and I'm excited to see how effective these things are.
I love it. It's very fun, very playful, as DAOs should be, right? We don't want to feel like we're at work. We want to play with magic internet money.
Absolutely, we want to create that vibe. And so why don't we kick off our DAO meeting? Oh yeah, and then we'll have our agenda every time here on the left-hand side. We decide to keep that. So that's always going to be there, but you guys are used to that. We've always had that there. And then, of course, we'll always kick off with old business. So why don't we go in and do that right now? And then, we'll get into the agenda for today. So we've had quite a few. You actually have some time still to vote on these if you haven't. A couple days on each one of these, I think. But the Agate 51 revote for re-election for the DAO multi-sig signers, that's almost wrapped up here, and so it looks like we will have for the 9 signers, we'll have no futuristic, no notorious BTC, and of course, unless the tides dramatically change, but I don't think that'll happen. But no futuristic, notorious BTC, Kakusho, Maxi Crouton, Macalm, Choina, Aavegotchi, and Mori, it looks like, are going to be the top 9. That will little close between Mori and Sir Linkiest, but we'll see how that one shakes out. But it looks like we have at least 8 of them look like they're going to be there, and possibly Mori as well. So that's and then of course. So yeah, those are the top 9. Go in and get your votes if you haven't already. I think you have till January 10th to get that in. The Agate, what's the next one here? Agate 54. Agate 54, creating the Arcade Task Force ATF. This was a old proposal that we brought up early last year. We've now brought it up again. That's for 100K to be transferred to the ATF in their possession, and that is to be earmarked for player rewards. So that 100K is going to be set on a specific schedule for drawdown. I don't, there's like caps to how much can be drawn down at one point for any specific event. But that's going to be a prize pool there, and hopefully incentivizes some heavy stress testing and engagement on the arcade side. Egg 55, update the template to require the use of weighted voting. And so that one seems like we got 94% in favor of requiring weighted voting. And so that's already met quorum at 9.1 million. Agate 56, funding the Alchemica spending competition. This was based on the Gotchi board developed by Mark. And that is 85% in favor of, and has met 9 million quorum. You still have 2 days left to vote on that. Last one here, establish the core framework guiding the wearable release. So it's a Forge proposal. And so this, I think Mikey J will be in the house here today, GM, to actually give us a breakdown on the core framework, and we got a segment dedicated to that today. So current results, 96 million in favor of, and has not met quorum rate yet, but I anticipate it will. You still have 4 days left to vote on that. So that's your old business there. So new business for today. Why don't we quickly just go through the agenda and then we can run through it again. So we got the Agate 51 election. This is just a summary of the core prop and what the terms are basically. And below that, you'll find, actually, this is something I didn't mention earlier on during the legend. Below each of these topics, you'll find more context. So if you want to see conversations, if you want to see linked materials, they'll usually be plugged right below the topic that we're discussing. And so, yeah, that's the Agate 51. We'll just briefly go over that, but you're welcome to just read this and get the gist of it also. Agate 56, the Alchemica spending competition, just the details of what the competition are. I know there have been some changes, I think, that were recently implemented to the competition. So we'll just go through the terms there. The core framework release by Mikey J this morning, and we have some materials that they put together for that. The second round of VRF rules for parcels. This was a conversation, I think, brought up by Dr. Wagme in the forums, and so maybe just want to briefly discuss that and get people's opinion on that one. I put together this from last year, so the 2022 funding summary. So all the funded projects and grants that the DTF funded, all the funded bounties, and funding summary for unfunded grants, projects, and bounties. I'm anticipating I will be putting a proposal through just for that, just to tie up our loose ends. But we are going to be moving to hopefully moving to a executive committee model, a group of people that are hired by the DAO that can actually execute on high priorities of the DAO. So, and also vetting proposals as well is going to be another big one. So, yeah, we can discuss that in detail there as well. Last item, if hopefully we have enough time to get around to it, but I wanted to discuss the Gotchi Lodge, 2023 Gotchi Lodge, ETH Denver. There's a group of us going, and we'll be requesting funding for, to get to the event, to be boots on the ground there, and to actually, hopefully, grow our current developer community and maybe even get some new talent building on the protocol. So, just give me a minute here. All right. Let's kick off with the Agate 51 election. We don't really need to go into detail with this because we kind of covered it, I think. But basically, these 9 people who have been voted in, for anybody who hasn't been following along, these are going to be signers for the Aavegotchi DAO Foundation's multisig. And so all 9 of these members are going to be doxed, so the ones you saw in the election there, and they'll be signers of the Treasury multisig, which will be a 5 out of 9 multisig to execute any orders. It is a paid position starting at around 8,000 ghosts per year, paying 2,000 ghosts to each director directly from the Treasury multisig every 90 days. The board acts as the executor of the DAO's wishes, so they will not be making decisions on behalf of the DAO. They will be simply, signing off the transactions of what the DAO has voted for what the DAO has voted on. If individual directors disagree with an action of the DAO, they can choose to resign, but they cannot vote or act against verified on-chain AGEP's intent. So there will, likely not be any, unless there's some technical, something technical that comes up, there really won't be any reason to reject transactions through the multisig. So long, as the decisions have been made. So no legislative power, execute off-chain commands of the DAO and simultaneously serve as signers of the Foundation's multisig. We already went over that. Candidates, we already kind of know who our candidates are, but they are outstanding members of the DAO. They all have good reputations. Everybody here is familiar with smart contracts. We can maybe do a confirmation just to be sure that everybody connecting to the DAO Foundation multisig does have a hardware wallet. I think everybody knows how to use it, but to have a hardware wallet for your address, I think we should make sure we confirm that. And of course, willing to have your name on the Cayman entity, dogs don't need to Pixelcraft Studios. So yeah, these are our 9 signers. And I don't see, there's nothing really conflicting with what we just went through here. So awesome. Does anybody have any questions regarding the Agip 51, or maybe you've been out of the loop, the election for DAO Foundation? Everybody's kind of on the same page here. 43 of you. Yeah, I would assume so. I think most people in here are regulars. But if you have any questions, just pop them up top there in the notes, and GM, yeah, I'll address that there if you have any questions. Alchemica Spending Season 1. That was created by Gotchi Mark, Mark, right? Gotchi Mark. Gotcha. Yeah, so 80,000 Ghost prize pool consists of 4 rounds, and each one being 1 week, and each round has a prize pool of 20,000 Ghost. And so I know I think the initial version was top 20, and now it's the top 50 ranked in each round will win a prize as shown on the scoreboard. And each round is ranked is measured in total spent in FUD. So, so this is what counts towards your total spending when you're crafting your installations, crafting decorations, crafting tiles, and upgrading installations. I think initially it was just upgrading installations. So it's interesting to see crafting tiles, decorations, and installations, and upgrading installations. My bad. So there it is. Spending on installations only counts at the time of claiming. So you got to claim your, don't leave things uncrafted while you're competing. Make sure you're claiming everything.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think there was some conversation that was going on around that. It might be below. No. But there was just some discussion going around that earlier this week I saw with Umami and Mark. So that's what they've come to conclusion there. Spending on installations, you got to claim them. You can use your max glitter for spending to count instantly. Each round has different time-based multipliers, and time your spending wisely to maximize your total spend each round. And you're gonna have to look at the multipliers there down below. Multipliers are right down here for those of you who want to have a look at that. And prizes will be sent out ASAP after each round. So be interesting. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on this and maybe doing a little coverage on our podcast and stuff. I think be interesting to see how this first one pans out.
So that's interesting. Maxi Crouton asks, does removing the installation reduce your score? It does not. So that's maybe that could be added to the rules. That's a little bit important, I think. People might have a strategy in a single week. Yeah, sure. Come on up.
Yeah.
Alpha strategy leaked. Come on up, sir.
GM.
Hi, GM. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, so yeah, there was a couple of things I just wanted to go through that people might not be aware of. So the first thing is we're planning to start on Monday, January 16th. So assuming the corporate passes, which it looks like it will start the Monday after, I think that is. Yeah, so 16th. And all the times are in UTC time. And I dropped a link to the competition I'll drop it again here. And if you click on the different rounds, you can see the different multipliers for each day. So hopefully that will kind of clear up, what each round looks like. Let me just see if there's anything else. Yeah, so the claiming thing, that was interesting. We had to actually verify this with Frank, I think it was. The spending only counts at the time of claiming the installation. So if you start crafting, the spending won't count on the leaderboard until you actually finish the crafting time and actually claim it. So if you use glitter, then you get it straight away, basically. So I think that's everything on there. The rules should all be kind of on the site. So if there's any more questions, then yeah, let me know.
Real quick, I'm just going to verify that on just, do you know what event you guys are using for that? I'll make sure.
Yeah, so it's the Mint installation event or Mint tile event. So I think, let me just find a link in the Alchemica chat. Me and Frank were talking about it. Let me just get the link there.
Yeah, I'm just verifying here because there is. Let's see. I thought there was an event when you. There's definitely an event when you finalize it, like you said, but there's also upgrade initiated for the upgrades.
Yeah, so you don't get that when you craft. So if you're crafting like a level 1,
Yep.
for example, you don't get that. So the Mint installation event was just the easiest to kind of be, that covers everything, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Because then, yeah, with the minting, I guess you'd have to check if it's a level 1 or not. Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess that's kind of debatable whether or not it should be like that, or should it be when you pay for it? But
yeah, so we had a bit of a debate around that, and it seemed the only kind of advantage you would get, because if you're upgrading from, say level 1 to level 7, you want to get the spending for all of those upgrades. So you kind of need to use glitter to get that in. For them all to complete in a week, you need to use glitter to get there. The only advantage, I guess, would be if you had a bunch of level 8s, and then you could kind of start crafting them a week, or a load of them like a week ago, and then use glitter to finish them on a certain round. But it's pretty kind of edge casey, and I don't think there's much advantage to be gained from doing that, really, because you're then losing all the spending from level 1 to level 8.
yeah, that makes sense. It's really, it's kind of an edge case. NFT displays will count, right? Because they're installation. So basically, any installation, any decoration, any tile will all count.
Yep. Yeah, and I've already tested those, because on Gotchi board we've got the leaderboards for it actually goes all the weeks since the Gotchiverse was launched. So you can kind of go back and test, and I've already tested all the tiles and decorations and stuff. They all seem to be coming through.
For people that aren't as clear about the rules, could you real quick explain the multipliers?
Yeah, so the multipliers, so for each day, so that each round runs from Monday to Sunday, right? And then each day has a different multiplier. So if you go on the competition page and click on the different rounds, right underneath that it says what the multipliers is. So on round 1 we've kind of got like a sliding scale going down. So on the Monday the multiplier is 1.6. So any spending you do on the Monday is multiplied by 1.6. and then it goes to 1.5 Tuesday, 1.4 Wednesday, and then keeps sliding down until Sunday when it's just a flat kind of 1x. So that's round one. Round two is just a flat 1x like the whole week, so there's no kind of multipliers. So round two is kind of, you can just spend on any day on round two and it won't make any difference. Round three, we've got, it kind of goes up. It starts 1x on Monday, and then in the middle of the week on Thursday, it goes up to 1.3, and then kind of goes back down to 1 on Sunday. So all of these are just kind of, I wanted to just make it a little bit interesting and just kind of see what kind of tactics and strategies people have based on this. Obviously, the obvious one is just spend the most when the multiplier is the highest, right? But then if it gets towards the end of the week and someone else has kind of overtaken you, it might actually be worth you spending a little bit with lower multipliers to get a higher kind of prize. So it'd be really, really interesting how that plays out. And then, round four is like the opposite of round three. So Monday starts 1.3 multiplier, then in the middle of the week it goes down to 1, and then goes back up to 1.3 on Sunday.
That's good. Round four is going to be exciting.
Yeah, because there's this kind of like comeback mechanic, right? You can spend a load on Monday, and then you can see where you're at on Sunday, but there's no like disadvantage to leaving it late. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how people play each round, basically.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the explanation. And awesome, the site looks great. Really fun.
Yeah, thanks. So there's the guy who I got to do the designs, Coinmandir, I think that's how you pronounce his name. But he's great. He kind of like, I found him on the Discord, and he'd done some other designs, and I just said, hey, do you want to kind of adapt them into this site? So he did a really great job there. It looks great.
Nice. The Connect wallet is currently disabled. Is that going to be enabled for the launch?
Yeah, no. That's
Okay.
kind of, that will be like the idea. First of all, was that we'd have a way to connect your wallet, but I'm not a kind of Web3 dev. I don't know any Solidity at all. I'm really kind of Web2. So we kind of left that, but later on we wanted to, it would be great if at some point we could do something kind of similar to what you guys have done on Aavegotchis, where you can create a profile and then we could do some cool things like on the leaderboard, instead of just showing an address, we could actually show maybe like an avatar or your gotchi and your name as well, which would be nice.
Yep. Cool.
Grim is asking on what day on the following week does the payout happen?
So this is, well, I already spoke to Dan quickly about this, but I was hoping that PC could do the payouts. I'd like it to be as soon as after the round ends as possible, because then people have money they could invest in later rounds if they want. But it's really kind of up to you, Dan, how you guys want to handle that.
Yeah, we'll be preparing the script to get all the leaderboard and try and make sure we verify it against your leaderboard. So that will be, we'll have a whole week to prepare that, just to make sure that our script is exactly what it says, what it says on the board. So
yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, because I was a little bit worried about if I'd made a mistake or anything.
Yeah, we'll verify that your info is correct, and then we'll write our script against that. So I would imagine it would go out probably if the round ends on what time is it? Like, let's see.
Yeah, so it will end like Sunday 23:59 UTC.
Yeah, I'm trying to. That's like 23. So that would be Monday for Asia time, I think. Maybe it'll go out probably Monday morning Asia time. So pretty soon after. We'll make that the first thing that we get done. Once the leaderboard is, we get that block, then the number. So No worries there.
Yeah. And sweet gotchi outfit there. You got the galaxy brain with the citadel. It's interesting. It's cool. We got Mikey J up here for the Forge update, the core framework release. And so I thought maybe we could give you a segment here to discuss what the Forge, what the framework release is, and yeah, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure, thanks, GM.
GM.
So yeah, we had kind of discussed this in the forum a few weeks ago when this was all formed, but the SIG prop was posted this week. And essentially the core framework was sort of the Forge team's thoughts on, now that you've got core and allies and schematics, kind of setting some guardrails for the DAO or some suggestions for the DAO about when and in what ratios to release new cores in the future. And we also felt it was prudent for the DAO to release a small percentage of new cores with the Forge launch to help provide a little bit of liquidity in cores to encourage forging and to allow for players to be able to sort of move between slots at the outset. So there's two documents. There's like a written document, a Google Doc that's linked there, I think, in the Miro board, and there's also a spreadsheet which is kind of all of the numbers behind how we got to our suggestions. So for anyone who's interested, I would encourage you to look at those. But just the short version is the way we sort of thought about this was in three sort of ratios. The first ratio being how many cores, or at this point really how many wearables are there to gotchis, and what is that ratio? And right now that's approximately 4.2 cores or wearables out there per gotchi. And what we had suggested was increasing that to a 4.3 ratio, which is about a 2.6% increase in the number of cores overall. So it's a very small increase. And just as a reminder, even increasing cores doesn't increase the total wearable supply because you're not releasing any alloy along with those cores. So to use those cores, other wearables would have to be smelted down. The second ratio is the ratio of each rarity of core to total cores. And so the idea here was we measured what currently exists, and so you have common is 47% of cores, rare is 15%, mythical is 2%, so on and so forth. So we measured those and sort of recorded those for posterity, and our recommendation was not to change any of those, to maintain all the rarities exactly pretty close to where they were. And so the idea here moving forward is that our suggestion would be for the DAO to kind of respect the existing ratios of between different rarities. And then the third ratio was the slot supply to the overall supply. So this is where things, over time, it's a little bit inconsistent in between the rarities. So, for example, common pets are very rare compared to all other common items, but godlike pets are not particularly, are much less rare compared to other godlike items. Similar for different other slots, like common body slots are less than, it looks like, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but say about 20% of all common items. But uncommon body slots are like 30% or so. So there's kind of big discrepancies between the different tiers. And we thought that was, something that should be looked at, because what happens is you have different players who are trying to progress up the tiers, right? To replace a common body with an uncommon body with a rare body and work their way up the tiers. And so at least thinking about moving towards a standard system, whereas within each tier, each slot has a set rarity. And I think it does two things. It helps that player progression. And then secondly, it also gives players assurance of what the rarity of that slot is likely to be in the future. So regardless of what the DAO wants to setting some type of idea for players to say, hey, pet slots will always be this rare compared to other slots. Hand slots will always be this rare compared to other slots. I think will really help players make purchasing decisions and add confidence to the market. So again, we looked at what was currently there, and this chart I think is in the Miro board. What we did was then we tried to kind of look at numbers that might make sense that were close to the current numbers, and that kind of respected, for example, right now that pets are 4% of the overall supply. We're suggesting that to be 5%. Face is 7. We're suggesting you go to 10, so on and so forth. So you can see that. But the idea here is really not that these are magic numbers, but that by putting some framework in place, it just gives the DAO some direction, so that when it is time to release new cores, when there's new gotchis in the future, and the DAO votes to release new cores, that there's sort of a plan for doing so. So it's not like investors are being surprised when the time comes, so that we don't all of a sudden have way more pets or way more eyes slots than we used to have, and everyone says, "Oh, I thought eye slots were going to be really rare," So it just kind of gives some confidence, I think, to players when they're making buying decisions. So that's the core framework, and certainly open to answer any questions about it.
Are there any areas that you guys are not happy with in this framework? I guess it would be a good starting point. Like, what are the areas that you internally still had some discussion on, or you think were not right, or were there any areas like that?
I think there were. So we did two iterations of this. So the first iteration we put out there to the community, we got some feedback from some people. The overall feedback was our initial target of number of cores. There were some people who felt, and also some people in the Forge team who felt that it was too much. So we dialed that back. And then we also had I think we had the pet face and eyes in our first iteration all at kind of the same, all around 7%. So pets and face and eyes were all of similar rarity across the board. And then again, we got some feedback that it would be, some members of the community thought it would be good to kind of keep pets codified as the rarest slot overall, which we agreed with. So we changed that. Those were kind of the two biggest points of discussion that came up.
Yes, it's really great. Very, very well thought out, and kudos to you guys for putting the effort to do this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great start.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And very insightful to see the changes here, and I think long term these are going to be great, great changes. I see Dr. Wagme up here. I just wanted to say GM. Is there something you wanted to cover regarding the this core framework here? Otherwise, while I have you up here, maybe we could talk about just the kind of the vision here moving forward for how we see possibly the DAO having a not the DAO but the DTF or the DAO Executive Committee having a specific structure. Get into that also.
Sure. Yeah, we got a lot on our plate today. It's always tough following up Mikey, the smartest guy in the team, but he did a great job outlining everything, and huge kudos to him and the huge amount of work he put in. Just from a DAO perspective, like if we want to sell new cores or if we want to sell Alloy, we need a SIG prop and subsequent core prop to do so. That kind of updates that framework document to say this is what we will be selling and this is why, and these are the target numbers that we're keeping. So just there won't be any surprise releases. It'll have to go through the DAO first. As far as the DAO exec committee goes, this has been a huge work in progress for months, I guess. And we're trying to figure out a way that we can have some infrastructure for our DAO to be productive, to hold each other accountable, to compensate people that are contributing meaningfully. And we're trying to think about what is most important to the DAO, like how can we have people in roles that can execute what the DAO wants, and how can we free up bandwidth from Pixelcraft, like move more towards decentralization, and then advance the protocol. So that's a lot to do, and I think to execute on all those things, we probably need a couple people in dedicated positions to do that. I know I'm interested in taking on a role. I think Mikey J has repeatedly proven how valuable he is to the community, and would love to see him in a role like that. I know Hefe, you're hoping to stay on, and reaching out to a couple other people in the community, a couple other people on the Forge team, if they would be interested in that. But I'm interested in hearing kind of from the community, like what they would think about a big hired team coming together as the DAO executive committee that would essentially execute on what the DAO wants. And the framework, I guess I shouldn't use the word framework, but the DAO org chart that we've worked on really kind of helps outline kind of how we're thinking about this, what those roles entail. And it's worth opening up to discussion, or happy to answer questions on your thoughts on it, Hefe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the questions, I guess, and we plan on really drilling down like on our values. We talked about mission statement. That's something we definitely is on our priority list. Something we'll be looking at over this month, and getting that like set in stone. I think, from my perspective, it seems like we're at a point in the DAO where we're faced with a path, like two paths that we could take. And one path is, the DAO kind of remains as the, we're the custodians kind of the protocol. We protect the protocol, but we also help fund community initiatives, like we have events like guild summits and that sort of thing, and we stay very much, let's say, grassroots, and when good ideas bubble up to the top, we help get those ideas funded. That's path one, and that's kind of the path we've been going down up until this point. But then the second path is exactly what Dr. Wagme outlined here, is to have a actual a team put together that can actually go out and execute on larger initiatives for the DAO. And so, think like, you have projects like the Forge. If there are other larger initiatives that the DAO thinks that we should have built out, the executive committee would be able to act on that and actually start building larger projects on the protocol, as well as maybe doing outreach. And like, there's other aspects to this. If you look through the org chart, it gives you different facets of what these people would be doing. But I think that, of course, I would favor the executive committee coming together. I think there's a lot of potential there. We've seen kind of like what was made possible with the Forge, with the team coming together and actually building a fairly large product, a fairly large ship on behalf of Aavegotchi DAO. So if that's the path people really like if you really like the path that we're going down with the Forge, then maybe the executive committee could be something to consider here. And I think we would have to set terms, and there would be more details to flesh out here. But the initial decision I think we have to make is, do we remain just guardians of the protocol, custodians of the protocol, and just maintaining the protocol while also maybe funding projects that or good ideas that come to the top? Or do we actually want to have a more structured mindset where we're actually voting quarterly on objectives that the DAO wants to execute on? And like Dr. Wagner said, have this, the A team come together and actually execute on those things. So I think that's a discussion we should have just to kick it off, is what do people think? What path do you think the DAO should be taking, moving forward in regards to funding projects and community initiatives?
And then piggybacking on that, I kind of envisioning what do these different paths look like. I think for the Forge team, we have ideas for what we would like to see for the next installation of the Forge, or Forge 2.0. And do we just say, come up with that idea, publish it out on the DAO forums, and then execute it? Or is it something where, if we have a group that forms the DAO executive committee, that is part of the job is to really get the community sentiment for what should be focused on by the Forge next, and then besides just taking on the next Forge upgrade. Things like looking over proposals to make sure they're high quality, get better operational and financial data in front of the DAO as a whole, kind of a more holistic approach that would be done by a team instead of just advancing the Forge itself. So I think that's a big choice we have to make, and I think it's a little bit more expensive, right, to have a dedicated team to take control of, not control, but to help oversee and move the whole DAO forward. Or do we like how things are going with just kind of having like contracted work where a group that's really excited about the protocol can advance it when they have the bandwidth to do so?
I have a couple little things just to add. So, one thing is that I think I made this observation in a forum post a while ago, but sometimes my personal feeling is that the work in the DAO, our solutions tend to, I think, sometimes go a little bit wide and sort of shallow rather than going really deep into a topic and spending the time and getting together the expertise in the team that's necessary to really do all of the work to do a good, complete job. I think a lot of times it's much easier because, we're all just here trying to coordinate as we can and not getting paid on a regular basis, just sort of cobbling together what we can to solve whatever the problem is of the day. And I think having a team that's kind of on retainer to really do deep dives into issues, I think could be very valuable and allow the work product, to be really, to let the DAO put out a better work product. And then my other thought, which wasn't really expressed in this org chart very well, but I would think if there was a team like this, there would be definitely a feedback loop between the DAO and the executive committee in terms of what the priorities are that the executive committee should be executing on. And so, that could look like something like a quarterly weighted vote where there's sort of a list of initiatives and priorities, and the DAO sort of sets those priorities. And we have kind of like a critical 3 priority type system where the DAO sort of sets the priorities, votes on the priorities that the executive committee should be working on, and that way the executive committee can make sure that they're executing on the things that the DAO on the DAO's wishes. And then that also gives the DAO a way to measure the performance. The executive committee can look back and say, how well did they deliver on these priorities, and to take that into account and to be able to hold those individuals accountable.
Yeah, I'm thinking through the different DAOs, the major DAOs that do exist right now. There's like Aave DAO, Sushi DAO, and there's things like DXD DAO. There's a lot of different models. I'm trying to think which one do you guys think is the most successful as a DAO right now? Besides us, because we're one of the biggest DAOs in the world, so we're doing something right. But are there any models that you guys think have done a really good job at what they set out to do besides Aavegotchi?
I mean, I've seen, my extent of knowledge with all the DAOs is probably not that wide. Like I don't widely know all the DAOs, but I've seen what Aave DAO does with Aave Grants and how they actually, it seems like what Aave Grants does is actually similar to what we do now, where they have like maybe like 1 or 2 people kind of managing their grants program, and then they have like, I've seen their Notion, and so basically someone comes in saying we need $25,000 to build this, and then I guess there's a review process, and then the funds are dispersed, and then the project is kind of left onto the grant, like the ones who receive the grant to execute on what they've actually promised and to actually deliver on it. I think that's how Aave Grants DAO or Aave Grants works. I'm not too familiar with the other ones, but if anybody else here does have some more context on that,
like
please feel free.
Sushi DAO is another big one. Obviously, when I think of Sushi DAO, I think of kind of dysfunction with their various executives that they've brought in. They've had like a couple different CEOs that were brought in to like build the protocol and the decks and all the different tools. And there's been a lot of dysfunction there. So while I think there definitely is a path forward to have some form of kind of an executive team, we do need to be careful that accountability and just this kind of different power hierarchy in a DAO can lead to a lot of dysfunction. So we need to be very careful with how we handle it. It's a great power and great responsibility to have kind of that title in the DAO. And I've seen just there's been like 2 or 3 sushi DAO CEOs that have flamed out. Just there's been all sorts of controversy around it. So definitely not something I would want to bring into that kind of energy into Aavegotchi. At the same time, we do need DAO leadership. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but there's got to be a way to move forward with that. I think that I agree that the Aave Grants DAO model is pretty much what we're doing without actually having an official Aavegotchi Grants DAO. And I like the way that the Forge kind of organized itself organically and had a clear plan of what they wanted to build and are now executing on that. So that, I believe, is testament that the kind of the grants model can work for the DAO. We don't have to have an executive kind of listening to the DAO, like an executive team, listening to the DAO and looking for a team. A team can organize itself and they can do multiple votes like they've done in the DAO here. It is quite a bit of legwork though to be able to get through that process. So maybe having a sub DAO that handles more of the funding would be like a great place to start. And on that team, they would need to have certain members that are able to evaluate the work that's been completed properly or not. But if we say this is going to be the whole DAO's executive team, I think that there's something a little bit strange about that it's a little bit paradoxical to say this is the executive team of the DAO, which is I think kind of why Aave Grants DAO did what they did, where they spun off a sub DAO and they gave it a budget. So I think that could be one way we could move forward as well, just having kind of a sub DAO, a spin-off DAO of Aavegotchi that has the mandate of the DAO, has a budget, and is accountable to the DAO. But at the same time, no one's saying like this is the executive team of the DAO. We're going to be making decisions on behalf of the DAO, because that's a lot of power.
Yeah, I think maybe a modified version of what we have here is maybe combining what you're saying with the sub DAO and have Aavegotchi Grants DAO, and then maybe we have 0.3 leads. Like we have a community lead, we have an operations lead, and we have like a technology lead or something. Just because you need probably a couple people at the helm, you need some form of leadership at least. Even if it's not executive decision making, maybe it's more like DAO-based decision making, where we're actually voting on initiatives and kind of what Mike EJ was saying with the voting on quarterly priorities within the sub DAO. But you would still maybe want, like in my opinion, I think it'd be beneficial to still have like a couple leads that are able to actually guide discussions forward, or provide some data-driven kind of analytics behind a specific initiative. Something like that. I do like the idea of a sub DAO actually, sub DAO funding group. But kind of curious to see what everyone else thinks about some sort of a hybrid model where we actually, maybe it's not an executive committee, but it's still maybe you have some leads that are part of this sub DAO, and then of course everyone in Aavegotchi would be eligible to be part of that sub DAO.
I guess one of the ways I've been thinking about it is like less exec committee and just having like on retainer DAO dev team that can execute in a more organized way. Like having been like founded the DTF, like having been on that, like I just don't understand the real difference between a sub DAO and like what the DTF was trying to do. And like that was an insane amount of work to do for free. And like I think if we don't have like paid designated leadership, we're not going to be able to drive projects forward.
Sure,
Like,
I totally agree. It
don't
should be a
support
paid
that again.
position. Definitely, we're definitely talking about paid positions, no matter if it's if we call it the DTF or the executive committee or some sort of grants DAO, those members should definitely be paid by the DAO. No qualms about that at all.
The leads, you mean, right? The leads
Yeah.
that we're just those should be paid positions, and I think the approach to compensating the members, I don't think should change. Like, we should be valuing their time and efforts, absolutely. But I think the DAO, the sub DAO model could work, especially with actually this is another thing I didn't touch on, but the Aavegotchi D work is actually all set up. So just based on our decisions that we make moving forward, I'll know kind of what subcategories and how to structure the contributor pools and all that. I haven't done that part yet, just because we have to make this decision first on how we're going to approach this, like DAO governance, or sorry, funding, just funding for the DAO from the DAO moving forward. So I like the idea about the sub DAO. I think we do have a thread. We have a couple threads going on this in the forums as well. So like definitely provide your input, and we should discuss amongst people who are interested in maybe some of these lead roles, what the budget could possibly look like if we were to, however we decide to structure the group, if it is a sub DAO or a committee, what would that budget look like? And maybe we'll start discussing that while also trying to come to consensus on how does the DAO want to deal with funding. And actually, Mikey J and Coder Dan, you guys both hit on an important point here, is we do actually need members of the community who are able to vet proposals, review proposals, and actually provide quality feedback on proposals. I think that's somewhere where we could, regardless of what decision we make, whatever path we decide to take, that is something that we should be looking at prioritizing. But yeah, this is kind of the work in progress here. Does anybody have any burning questions regarding or even comments, concerns, anything like that?
Should we give ourselves kind of a deadline for when we would want to make a decision on this? Otherwise, this is probably the 4th or 5th discussion there's been on this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, to aim for to have this all sorted out within the next couple of weeks is doable, because we've had a lot of background conversation on this. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to have this all sorted out by the end of January and have a new structure funded.
Yeah, because going into like Q1, one of my goals is to start working on the transition from Cocoon to Metamorphosis, and actually getting to a point where we have some like robust DAO dashboards. We have on-chain voting really is where we need to be, but there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done before that. So that could possibly be, I don't know if, how we would want to structure it, but it would be great if there were community members from the DAO that would be working on those different aspects, like some smart contract work, documentation, front end probably. Just like there's a couple areas where I think it would make sense if the DAO started working on those areas independently of Pixelcraft. We can obviously guide and advise, but I think we're getting to a point where the DAO is able to start handling some of its own affairs, which is super cool to see.
If we were to do a grant sub DAO, would you be okay with us like kicking off our own Discord server with our own kind of our own area to basically discuss fund proposals, like have it become its own kind of entity, its own thing?
Yeah, I mean, we do have the DTF. That server isn't super active. I personally have been wondering, should we have an Aavegotchi DAO server, or should we just keep everything here? We've gone back and forth on it a couple times. Most people seem to think it's okay keeping it in this server. But if it were like an official entity with its own Twitter and namespace, it might make more sense to have another Discord server. But yeah, we'd have to make that call.
Yeah, I mean the interesting part of DWork is we can actually plug specific threads to, like, we can have an Aavegotchi DAO or Aavegotchi grants thread, and we can actually connect that to specific bounties or tasks that we want to issue. And so we could do it that way and just have something integrated into the current server, just to maybe keep things simple and, like you say, not have people in two different servers. We could actually just link things to DWork specific to Aavegotchi DAO grants, and manage it that way within, nested within our current server.
Mm-hmm.
That could be another way to do it alternatively. But I'm all for moving away from the current DTF server, just because my admin abilities in there are extremely limited, like not at all. And so, we definitely have to move away from that. I think there's also some security issues there. So we should probably, either way, probably deprecate the current DTF server and either integrate a nest a server or nest our activity within Aavegotchi, or have our own spin up a new Aavegotchi DAO grants Discord. Yeah, but either way, I was gonna say I will be submitting just a kind of intermediate funding proposal just in the meantime, because I think the current DTF a multi-sig only has like 500 Ghost in it, and we have some projects that we still have left to fund from last year. So I don't want to keep those people waiting, especially since they've already delivered on what they promised. So I will be putting in a proposal this week just to tie up loose ends from not new projects, but just already funded projects that we didn't finish funding. So I'll be getting that in at least over the next week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, do we have some time? I did want to go over and have some discussion. I'll keep it brief, I think, about the bonding curve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm sure there were most of you were probably on yesterday's call during the hangout, but just if you were not, we went over kind of a significant issue, which is there's recently a situation with Digital Currency Group and Gemini and their stablecoin GUSD, where basically MakerDAO, the creators of DAI, have a lot of GUSD on their balance sheet, and there's a lot of speculation going around, probably not just FUD, but actual real potential trouble, that Gemini and Digital Currency Group, who's their counterparty, could potentially have some issues, and similar to how FTX went, they would file for bankruptcy. Our main worry is, one of our worries is that GUSD, which is owned by Gemini, which has about $750 million total float, with about 500 million of that on the MakerDAO balance sheet. There is potential, although I think it's fairly low possibility, but there is a potential case where GUSD could basically go to zero, and that the MakerDAO would have kind of a big GUSD-sized hole in their balance sheet. So I did some research over the weekend and was just checking in to see how sentiment on MakerDAO was, how they were thinking of this issue, and from what I could tell, if GUSD imploded, it wouldn't actually take down MakerDAO or even potentially cause a bank run, which is what we'd be mainly concerned about on our side. Because given the context, I'm sure you guys know, the bonding curve is generally it's funded by DAI, and so if DAI has any issues where it becomes depegged from $1, that would substantially affect Ghost. So we're always kind of looking at DAI and MakerDAO and seeing what they have on their plate, what they're worried about, what their roadmap is. So I came away from my research not really too bearish on MakerDAO. They are over collateralized by about 25%. So even if GUSD went down, they would still be okay. But there is a possibility that GUSD or USDC, if there's some issues on that side, and USDC or Tether went down, that there could be some contagion that would potentially affect Ghost. So where this is kind of going is really, we did pass a prop a couple months ago about the emergency plan for the bonding curve. And I just think as a DAO, we do have quite a bit on the line with the bonding curve, and currently about 18 million DAI in it. So I think we should just be proactive and think about all the angles and potentially think about how we would want to handle a situation like we're currently presented with. If there's a lot happening in the macro crypto environment, from what Golden Cross and I have discussed, we kind of think if we can make it through the first half of this year, things will probably cool down a little bit. But there's a lot of FUD out there right now. There's Binance is getting investigated, Huobi is getting investigated, Digital Currency Group might be going bankrupt. There's a lot of macro FUD on the horizon, and so we're fairly conservative guys. You guys probably know that. So I think it's worth discussing. Should we preempt this kind of emergency plan and actually think about being a little bit more proactive as a DAO?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I see there's a question in the chat there from Mikey J. What's the difference between DAI depeg and the protocol turning off the bonding curve? Would there be similar type of impact in both these scenarios?
Right. So if there's a DAI depeg, that would mean that the DAI that's in the bonding curve that it still is in there is now worth less than $1 each. And so if the curve is that would mean that if we turned off the curve and withdrew that DAI and converted it to, let's say, USDC, that we would get less than $1 for each of the DAI, which would definitely lead to some Ghost repricing, and it would just be a bad deal for the DAO. So we don't know how fast a depegging could happen, right? We kind of all saw how fast UST depegged. It went from $1 down to 80 cents, down to basically 10 cents, and then 0 within a weekend. So these things can move pretty quickly. I don't think that DAI would depeg that quickly, but you never know, because this is all highly speculative finance, and it's also worth noting that DAI themselves, MakerDAO, they do have a plan called the end game, which they are actually planning to depeg DAI anyway from the USD. To kind of there's a group of voters in their DAO that are basically trying to move away from the USD peg and just go to like a more free floating currency.
Are they actually moving in that direction? I didn't realize. I thought that was a big contested discussion, and then in the end they decided, well, we'll just, they were gonna keep using stables like GUSD and USDC to keep it pegged.
I read a great tweet a while back about there's like 3 different groups within MakerDAO, kind of the conservatives, like the futurists, and then like there's one other, but I think Rune is kind of one of the lead devs. He's the one pushing the end game model, and from what I can see, there's a lot of discussion about it. I think it will probably get legs at some point. The roadmap is like 3 or 4 years, so it's not something that's going to happen in 2023, but it is kind of their longer term plan. So what would happen to the DAI? What we would probably, this is the complicated part. So what happens after the curve is turned off? Where does the DAI go? Do we convert it into something else? And then like there would be probably a split between like the Pixelcraft and the DAO, and what exactly that split would be discussed. But basically, the DAI would be usable by it would become our treasury, and Ghost would become a free floating token with a fixed supply. So that's what would happen. You know, the point of the bonding curve was to bootstrap the ecosystem, and it's done a fabulous job of that. It's basically a continuous fundraising organization, and the funds we have less funds than we had in it a year ago during the bull market, but 18 million DAI is still a huge win. I think it's done its job. So that there is an angle to discuss for saying there's a lot of macro FUD out there. Is it time that we just say, you know what, we're not, as a community, we're not comfortable having all this macro risk on our most important ecosystem asset. It's time to decouple from DAI. So that would be a good conversation to have, I think.
That would be awesome if we could use 18 million DAI for the project or a DAO. That would be a huge plus for us. Also, if Ghost moved to be a lot more attractive for investment, I think.
Yeah, it's something I noticed with Axie Infinity is the reason why their token pumped from like 40 cents to I think $69 or even higher than that, I think, during the bull market, was a lot of investors just coming in on Coinbase and some of these bigger platforms looking at looking at Axie, where they were like, this is a really amazing thing. This is going to be a huge metaverse, and seeing the potential of it, and not going to buy the assets because they probably wanted a passive approach and just buying the token. And in buying the token, they help the price, right? So I know we're not supposed to talk about price here. It's not really our objective to like really design around affecting the price, but it just could be another positive effect from the great work that we're doing in our ecosystem. You know, if we keep doing what we're doing and we're topping the leaderboards in terms of DAO activity, we have like we have presence on social media. Like we're gonna have some IRL presence here pretty soon, or we have been with Aavegotchis even. I think there's like the next few years of us building this out is gonna look really good for us, and really good for enticing for investors too that might want to come in and passively get some exposure to Aavegotchi. So that's just my take on it. But of course, that's not the focus. There was, Mikey J, you mentioned there was a contingency plan already put in place in regards to the end game that you were talking about, Coder Dan. And I think our plan called for basically turning the DAI into USDC and then turning off the curve. What are your thoughts on that just now, thinking about where we're at with the war on stablecoins, some of the FUD? What are your thoughts on that plan that we voted on, I think a couple months ago?
Yeah. I do think that USDC is, I think that Tether is also a decent option. Literally, I've been in crypto since 2016, and the Tether fudders, they've always been like, even back then, people were always fudding Tether. This might be the year, maybe they're right this year. So I would say it's either basically USDC or USDT that we would be putting a lot of the treasury in. The other option would be to just put it all in Ghost. That's a little bit more risky. But we could certainly put a portion of it in Ghost. Or I think the emergency plan was also mentioned, potentially doing some kind of micro buys of Ghost to slowly accumulate it. That would be another option. But as I answered above, I think the risk of Circle or USDC like blacklisting Aavegotchi DAO or Pixelcraft is pretty low. So really, the main concern would be, is USDC going to maintain its peg? And I think it probably will for a while. I haven't really heard too much FUD from the Circle side. So the main concern with USDC on MakerDAO and DAI is that DAI is primarily made up of USDC, and we would be worried. I think it's like 35% of their vaults or something are USDC based. So we would be worried that Circle would actually get pressure from governments to essentially do what they did to Tornado Cash and just like torpedo it and put it on the blacklist, and then no one can use MakerDAO anymore. So that would be the worst case scenario. And if that happened out of the blue, just like it happened to Tornado Cash, then that would trigger a bank run on MakerDAO for sure, 100%. So the GUSD is kind of small FUD, but the bigger FUD would be what happens if USDC blacklists MakerDAO. That would not be good.
And we saw how quickly that happened with Tornado Cash.
Exactly. Yeah, they came out of pretty much nowhere, and within a weekend, we saw all these like front end having to put up all sorts of KYC, AML kind of stuff. It can happen very quickly. So that's probably one of the biggest threats to our ecosystem at the moment, is the fact that we are so tightly coupled with DAI in terms of Ghost.
What are your thoughts on if we did have 18 million DAI added to our treasury from turning off the curve, what are your thoughts on the DAO owning, or maybe using part of those funds to own other assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Matic, those sorts of things? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like treasury management is quite important. You don't want to be completely in your native asset. So I think we would probably just diversify into maybe the assets that we know. So Matic, Ethereum, Bitcoin, probably not much beyond that. Everything else is very, very speculative, but it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of diversification.
Yeah, just I'm not talking about turning the whole treasury into that. Just talking about the portfolio management or asset management. Okay,
right,
interesting.
If we do keep it all in USDC, again, then we have some risk, albeit low, fairly low, of something happening. And there's also no upside, right? If the DAO buys Ethereum at kind of generational lows, and it does well in the next bull run, that would be good for the DAO. So I think there's some form of minor treasury management, not going too crazy with it, but giving a little bit of upside to the DAO is probably not a bad idea if we have all that DAI.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is a good discussion. Moving, in terms of actionable items or actionable steps that we could take, do you think we need to follow up on our contingency plan from last month or a couple months ago and now create maybe a new proposal or a plan put together in place? Or do you think we actually have to start moving towards moving away from DAI and actually maybe start thinking about turning off the curve and think about a timeline for that? What are your thoughts on like actual, actionable things that we can do currently?
So we have evaluated what would be necessary to do it. It takes about 3 steps. It's really just like the timing right now. Obviously, the timing is not great. We're not in a very healthy market in general. But looking back, if we 6 months from now, if we had a crystal ball, we said, how's the market going to look 6 months from now? Is it going to be, maybe now is literally the best time there is. Maybe it's the worst time. I mean, literally no one knows. So really, we should think about the risk that a potential MakerDAO blow up kind of poses to us, and kind of compare that to the potential for waiting and saying, we think it's a bad time to do this right now. Let's wait 6 months and see if things are looking a little bit more up than they currently are. But they might not. So, yeah, Mark actually has a good a thought here. What would drive demand for Ghost? And we are working a lot on that, actually. We've been doing a lot of tokenomics kind of thinking. Nothing to share with you guys yet, but yeah, whatever we do needs to go together with a new narrative for Ghost, and a way to bring us a little bit more attention from the crypto sphere in general.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to drag this discussion on too long, but one more question. I was wondering if you knew anything about the GHO token and the status of that. Is that something that might be available to us in the near future, that maybe we could consider that as an option?
I have not heard anything about GHO recently. If anyone is chatting with Mark Zeller recently, maybe ping him about it. I haven't really seen him much on Twitter either. So no, I really don't know a lot about GHO at the moment. If anyone wants to do some research on it, though, yeah, I guess there are people talking about it on Twitter, so maybe there is something happening.
Yeah, absolutely. We can, if you are a GHO, if you know anything about that, next week maybe you can come on up and discuss. I like Quincy's point as well in terms of moving forward. Maybe we could think about having a vote on some conditions, talk about what conditions might have to be met before shutting down the curve. That could be a good way to approach.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I would like to kind of move on to some of our other agenda items here. Dr. Wagme, you had a discussion here regarding the second round for VRF rules for parcels. You are up here. Do you want to discuss this, or do you want to kick it down to next week? It's your call, but we could discuss this a little bit because you posted in the forums just the other day.
Yeah, sure. I'm here. I mean, I'm interested to hear from Dan about what the team's thoughts have been on this. In short, I think most of us that spent a lot of money on the Aavegotchi verse kind of end around this 6 month time frame, which we passed, and then as a lot of us are thinking about gearing up for this Alchemica spending competition, what the re-rolls look like as we're trying to plan out our farms and really invest both time and money in the game. I think it's important to be steady and kind of have an environment that's minimal risk, since this is all such risky investments. And if I'm going to deploy $5,000 to $10,000 worth of Alchemica in the competition coming up, it'd be nice to know what the role number 2 looks like. And Dan, what have you guys been thinking about this?
So we are still, our internal plan is to have the first great battle by beginning of Q2. So we're aiming for April. Whether or not that happens is yet to be seen with dev development, but that's our goal that we're working towards. We're currently also obviously building out the arena and just other various small features. So if the DAO wants to wait until April, that would be the more lore friendly option. It is 3 months away, 3 months away. So a little bit of a distance. But if we really wanted to do that re-roll now or within the next month, it could be done. If the DAO votes to do that, I think that's the best decision. Then we could also go with that, and maybe this is the pre-roll, and then the next one would come after the first great battle.
Right. I feel bad for land investors. I think it's been affected so significantly by just general market downtrend, and it'd be nice to follow through on some I don't know, whatever they plan. How can we help make that happen? How can we support our landowners as much as possible, because they've obviously had a tough time. And I think that's what I would support doing, is doing role number 2 as soon as would be allowed by dev time. But interested to hear from the community.
Reading some of the comments here, Mark saying, I think most people prefer focus on arena rather than great battle, so 10% reroll soon would be nice. No futuristic. If we don't allow reroll until April, won't Alchemica prices rebound since less dumping from people who emptied their parcels? I don't know. Well, this is I think an interesting way to look at this is what percentage of spacious parcels only have, like, for example, less than 40% Alchemica left. I'm kind of curious to know, like, the statistics around how we've been doing around our harvesting. Like, I don't actually have an opinion on this, but I'd be curious to know some of the statistics, and then actually, like, I'd have something to say about that. But I don't know what percentage. Yeah.
If you remember, like, the different graphs we looked at for, like, the different types of farmers that there would be, right? There would be the farmers that aggressively spend early on, and to, like, intentionally, like, have a plan that doesn't, like, follow through on the promises of the available Alchemica is so strange. Just like, well, we don't want more inflation, so we're actually going to, like, rug you from getting, like, more Alchemica from your parcel because you had an aggressive, like, expensive farming plan. That doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. I think we should definitely try and figure out, because I do remember a significant amount of people put in a large amount of capital up front when those Alchemica prices were quite high as well. And so their initial cost is, quite steep, invested into their structures. So maybe the way you might be thinking about this is, I've invested the capital up front into my setup, and I've now got back some of that Alchemica back to cover my initial costs, at least partially. But I want to keep that coming in because I invested so much money into this equipment. It shouldn't be just sitting there idle, on an empty parcel, for example. So I'm kind of curious to know how many of these individuals out there do we have? Because if there's a large amount of parcels that might be empty within the next couple months, then yeah, I think it makes sense to do a reroll, because those people will have invested significant capital into expensive installations only for them to sit there idly waiting for the next one.
Yeah, I think all the roles that weren't above average, if you fully built when Harvesters first got released, then they should be empty by now. I think I had one spacious parcel which I fully built on straight away, and I think I only have Keck left in that, which was the only one which I had, like, a really good Keck roll, but all the rest were kind of around average, and that's all empty now. And that was from December. I think they've been empty for almost a month now. So
right, and mine are empty too. And I think the way we planned this is that when you have your next roll, right, like, other people still had Alchemica left, but if you were an aggressive builder, you would be able to, like, early in the round, be able to get as much Alchemica out. So that's part of the game theory. That was part of spending like $15,000 on a level 9 spacious, which seems like a poor investment in retrospect. But I think staying true to, like, what the game plan was at that time, like, how can we respect the time and investment for our community, should be a priority for us.
Yeah. I mean, even in terms of the lore, if we were to make any changes, I think we could find ways to make the lore still work for this, so long as we're not, like, retroactively changing it every time to fit that. It makes sense that we were thinking that this would kind of be in timing with the Great Battle, but didn't quite line up just by a couple months. But I imagine once we get that first Great Battle done, these will be done a little bit more routinely, right, Coder Dan? Like every 3 months or something like that, there'll be a Great Battle, and then you'll have that 3-month period to kind of empty your parcel, and then you'll get the next roll. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the intention behind the great battles. They're supposed to be fairly regular. At the same time, we do want to make sure every great battle is special and unique. So if the team has bandwidth to do it in that 3-month period to make like a new kind of feature for the next great battle, we'll definitely try to do that. But the idea is to have about 3 to 4 great battles in this year, at least in this calendar year.
Okay. Got a question. Sorry. I see you unmuted, Dr. Wayne.
Yeah, I just saw that I was seeing some support here. I think this could be a chance to like kind of reframe like how we think about our signal proposals and kind of putting something in front of the DAO to see what stakeholders think about this. And if there's not a lot of support, if it's pretty clear that the community doesn't want that, that's okay too. But I wanted to at least start the discussion and see if it was technically feasible. But I'll probably plan to put something in front of the DAO over the next week to see how it goes.
When would you be basically designating this to be? We need some actionable information in the SIG prop. Make sure that it is able to be turned into a core prop without any major changes.
Sure. When from a dev perspective is a reasonable time frame.
Really, on the smart contract, it's like one function call, and on the UI side, we would have to do a little bit of work, but it's a fairly light lift. We kind of built it to be a pretty light lift for everyone.
Oh, good. I don't know. It's going to take probably 3 weeks to get through it. Like do you think end of the month is still reasonable for an execute date?
No, because we have a pretty aggressive release for this month plan. So if we could put it in February, that would be probably preferable. I just can't add more to the team's like release for this month.
I think that's totally fair, and that lets people participating in the competition kind of have some reassurance, like this extra role is coming. It maybe isn't this minute, but build away because for February. So I will. I'll put that up.
Right on.
Great.
Awesome. We have a couple more items we're actually making good time here. I think we'll actually cover everything for our meeting today. So one more thing here, actually 2 more things here I wanted to go over. The 2022 funding summary, just kind of put something together there. The things we funded last year. So some of the funded projects and grants that were, I would say, successful from last year. And so we did some token bridging videos that are produced collectively from GMI. There was a Notorious and Mikey J economics modeling that was quite extensive. That really helped with the early kind of planning in partnership with the DAO when we were looking at harvesting. The GMI Guild Summit. We had gotchidash.com. There was a glitter dune dashboard that was developed. Of course, the Forge development, we assisted with that. The GMI Artist Summit, Gotchiverse Installations Dashboard, Mark's Gotchi Board, the Gotchi Farmy Sandbox Experience, which you guys just saw the trailer there yesterday. And of course, funding the DAO media team. So everything you see here, Hardcore's Miro boards, the live streams, the studio, all that stuff was in assistance with the DAO. Some of the funded bounties from last year, we had State of the Wearables Market Analysis, the VP Snapshot, the Voting Power Snapshot Query Update by Jared. The Respec Potion development was done with, again, Jared and Notorious BTC. The DAO Media Kit made by Thrax. 2022 Miro archiving and timeline by Hardcore, and then a Miro template designed by Hardcore as well. So I've just put down some of the unfunded grants, projects, bounties from this last year. So just kind of whatever we have outstanding here, still left to pay out from work that was already agreed upon. So I will be putting together just a funding proposal just to cover this, as well as maybe cover like another month of compensation for myself. So I'll be putting that in as a SIG prop sometime next week, and just get the loose ends tied up from last year. So that's the those are the 2022 funded projects, bounties, and grants. So it was, overall, I think it was pretty good use of our 50,000 ghosts that was initially allotted to the DTF. Last item on my list here, the Gotchi Lodge ETH Denver. So there's been a group of us who have put, who have organized amongst ourselves in conjunction with Pixelcraft, and we have a group of 7 that we put together to attend the event network, and we're going to market Aavegotchi, everything under the Aavegotchi brand. So Aavegotchi DAO, fake gotchis, the protocol itself, the community building aspect of it, and kind of showcase the facets of our community. So something to mention about ETH Denver, I've had a extensive conversation with Golden Cross on this also. It is a little bit unique from the other conferences Aavegotchi's had presence at. So usually we go to a conference, it's NFT NYC or Art Basel Miami. These are conferences where they're not really dev focused. There is definitely an aspect of that, but a lot of people are there to have a good time, party. There are other various NFT communities out there that are very much just community based, and it's all about just kind of vibing at a lot of these events. ETH Denver is unique in that it is a very large, I think one of the largest Web3 dev conferences in the world. So many technically inclined individuals coming together in this place. So the way we were looking at it is it's an opportunity to invite some new talent to build on the protocol and actually grow our current developer community. Get more people into the ETF, get more people building interesting tools on the protocol, maybe things that we don't even really anticipate yet, because really it's up to the builder to decide what they want to do with these assets. And there's a community ready to actually, I think the value proposition that Aavegotchi provides is really, it's a really strong value proposition for someone who is a Ethereum developer, maybe they're a hobby developer, and they want to kind of use their skills for something a little bit more creative, and they know they will get appreciated or at least recognized for the work that they're doing. So that's a little bit different than going out and making your own game or making your own NFT project. They have a community here that's going to be receptive to what they're building. So I think that's one of our major value propositions at events like this, is inviting builders onto the protocol and showcasing the value in these like assets. Lost Local from Pixelcraft is going to help with team gear, marketing, and selecting the venues. And so we'll be doing a coffee hour with the devs, a networking event at a local cafe, which we'll be live streaming. It'll be a chance to discuss things like the Diamond Standard. We can talk a little bit about fake gotchis, community built tools, and as well as maybe highlight some of the really interesting games and protocol level experiences like the Forge, with composable assets, and showcase these things at this developer conference. So No Futuristic, myself, Mike Helm, ZombieShepherd, Lev, and Smokescreens will be attending this event, and we're organizing amongst ourselves the specific tasks that we'll be carrying out there. And so the trip kind of comes with a mission, and I wanted to know what the DAO would think about this. We had a hackathon earlier in 2021, I think, and it seemed like it was quite successful. We got 10, or it was a game jam. We got 10 games out of it. 10 games, and I think a couple indie game developers like Shaw, I think Gotchinomics, were attracted to Aavegotchi through those hackathons, or through that gameathon. And so this is another opportunity here for GMI as a group to maybe host a post-event hackathon after ETH Denver, and it would also give us a kind of an olive branch to give out to developers at the conference to sign up for a like 4-week post Ethereum developer hackathon, or post ETH Denver hackathon. And so there'd be, the idea here is still being fleshed out for this part of it, but it would be kind of a DAO sponsored prize pool, and we could do some live event coverage during the 4 weeks. And I just want to know what your thoughts are on the Gotchi Lodge and having this group at ETH Denver, marketing some of our, some of the valuable parts of our protocol to a developer, and getting some more people into our community, as well as second part, the hackathon. So just kind of curious to know what people think about that. And there will be a budget request for our mission here. So we will be we are in the process of putting something together for that. Just gonna read the comments here. Paper tickets. Well, I mean, I will also reiterate that this is going to be a lot of work, and I think, talking to the Pixelcraft side, they didn't see it unreasonable as the value that could potentially be created, and again, going back to the unique aspect of this conference. And so maybe if it was Art Basel Miami or NFT NYC, might be a little bit of a different value proposition. But I think there's a chance here to actually grow our community, and it says a lot when you have a group like that organized amongst themselves, actually working at these conferences especially over 9 days during a bear market. It says a lot. So definitely wanted to throw that out there. Let's see. I think there's a team that proposes a travel expense budget and a concrete plan for how they're going to engage with devs at the event. It can make sense. Yeah, exactly, Mikey J. That's something we're in the process of putting together. I wanted to throw the idea out there now because we do have a timeline that we're working on here, and we are hoping to actually get some concrete funding together over this next week and actually get a proposal out there. ZombieShepherd, the Lens team and creator cohort have expressed large investment in Aavegotchi since talking with them in Art Basel. We're planning to host some crossover Twitter spaces with Chris Comrie. Claire's reached out as well with some alpha I can't drop yet. But the point is that IRL event gets people interested in a way that you just can't touch online. 100% agree with that. And so we will be working on Chris with a series of onboarding videos from outside view. Yeah, Shai, kind of like that idea as well. And maybe that's something we can discuss if we would be wanting to aim to posture for a hackathon, or if we'd be aiming to posture for a gameathon with the assets. Musashi, or no futuristic saying Art Basel was fun. It was a grind for the 48 hours. Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the amount of work that goes into these conferences. It's a ton of coordination. It's a ton of setup. It's outreach, and I think it also requires specific personalities and types of people to actually network and get things done. So yeah. Musashi, I even have fun when I run IRL events. I'm just saying I've been through this with multiple DAOs now, and we all come to the same conclusion. We pay the way if we can pay for everyone who wants to go. Otherwise, we pay for ourselves. I'm not saying people don't work when they go. I'm saying it's not fair to choose one Gotchi gang member over another to pay their way to conferences. Yeah, I mean, I actually agree more with no futuristic. This is more of a, this is not like, fund our trip to ETH or NFT Miami or NFT NYC. so we can have a great time. I'm actually going to NFT NYC, and I don't think maybe that's the same. It's a completely different proposition there. But this is more of like a media team, IRL media team from Aavegotchi. Mikey J, devil is in the details. Paying friends to go hang out is no way. Paying a capable team to rep the protocol with a plan on how they'll gain visibility and schedule one-on-ones. We need this type of thing. I'm actually, yeah, I would say maybe if you're talking about NFT NYC, NFT Miami, Art Basel, I would actually say usually it's the former, like, you know, people going to hang out typically and have a good time. You know, not saying it's not work, but typically it's a different type of environment than where we're going, where there is going to be a sense of professionalism and like you say, visibility. We're working on actually having like team gear so we can actually be represented at the event, and actually scheduling one-on-one like interviews and that sort of thing. Absolutely, that is kind of the angle here, and it's the reason why we're asking for funding from the DAO, because we think it will actually return significant value to the DAO. We're going to be spending our days. There at the event, as much as we can, networking, creating these connections, doing outreach and interviews, as well as having specific things planned over that week. Yeah. What about on board-a-thon?
Do you guys have like a doc or a plan already with like some numbers? How many attendees?
Yeah, we do have a doc, kind of working in collaboration with Lost Local. It looks messy, so I didn't put it up here, but the ask basically for us to go there, a little bit of a stipend for the work that we're going to be doing, as well as covering some travel expenses for everybody that will be actually having active roles at this event, is about, we're thinking between 10 and 12,000 ghosts. So that will be our ask for that, between 10 and 12K. And I'll have a specific breakdown, of course. When we ask for funding, we should have specific breakdowns, which is why I didn't actually include that in here. We want to flesh that out a little bit and find out exactly what are going to be everyone's specific costs. But it sounds like the average right now is about, roughly $1,200 in travel costs, and then, to have a little bit of a stipend, as it is work that we're going to be doing. So I think there should be some compensation there for that as well. Dr. Wagme, maybe put this post up for DAO discussion so we can see. Yeah, absolutely. I think what we'll do is I'm going to put everything together, compile, and confirm with the rest of the team, and we'll get a forum post up and we can start discussing it and fleshing out details a little bit more with the rest of the DAO. I think that's the best step forward.
Depending on what the plan looks like, I personally, I would probably say the DAO can support like part of it, but paying for the entire thing seems a bit much of an ask, I guess. Unless there's really like you have a clear plan on what value will be delivered, because I'm sure part of it will just be hanging out, having like meeting people. It's great. It's East Denver. There'll be a lot of networking. I don't know if the DAO should have the responsibility to pay for the entire like all of it. Maybe the travel, lodging, and things like that. And then I don't know about the stipend. This would just be my feeling about how we would probably do it from our side, like Pixelcraft. I don't think we usually pay for the entire day. But yeah, I don't know. This is also first time that the DAO has asked for funding for this kind of thing. So we're kind of in new territory here, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I want to reiterate, I don't want to set precedent for funding every event to send everybody, to NFT Miami, and now we're funding trips to Art Basel. That's not really the angle I'm trying to come at from here. I'm actually thinking this is a unique opportunity to network with some technically inclined individuals. But we do have a plan put together. I'll clean it up a bit, and why don't I get that down in the forums, and then we can. I think that's the best way to move forward. But I think there should be. I would say there should be a stipend. I think even the stipend we're asking for is going to be a really low ball. When we look back at the end of the week with all the work that we actually had to do, is still going to be almost like just a thank you for doing the work, but not really actually. I don't think it'll be fully compensating anybody for the work they're going to be doing, because it's going to be, I'm anticipating it's going to be quite a lot of work for, especially over 9 days too. That's a long time. Yeah, but I think for actionable items, that's what I'll do. I'll talk to the rest of the team there and actually get that down in the forums.
Yeah, I think that would help the convo.
Absolutely.
If you have like a clear plan for media and deliverables, that would definitely be part of it. And then like meeting people and networking, that's once you arrive, like that's what you're there kind of to do. And it can be a grind, like during the daytime conferences can be, you just like, if you're like walking up to people and chatting with them, it can be, I'm kind of an introvert, so I have a little bit of a tough time at conferences, but you got to push through it. But if you're extrovert, usually you just kind of walk up and there's lots going on. You got an entourage and can chat with people. It's fun. But
yeah, and I think the 7 of us will kind of bring the essence of the Gotcha Gang vibe. Hopefully, I think Dr. Wagme said he was going to be there for a little bit too, so that'll be interesting. Just reading the last couple comments here. No futuristic. I've done a few of these, and media coverage is a lot of work. I agree. We can also have a clear plan for the media stuff. Yep, we're gonna have this fleshed out. Let's see, Jesse, Golden Cross, Zico. This would be setting a precedent for that. Why is this event different than the others? People would argue the event they're going to is different than the only. Well, I did say already it is different than the others. It's the largest Web3 dev conference in the world. Whereas, a lot of these other events are more community based. They're a lot of the time NFT based. I would say it's a different crowd. But someone who knows ETH Denver, that crowd can definitely correct me. But I think it's definitely a different opportunity, different crowd. Golden Cross, also a good point going forward. This feels a bit rushed, but ETH Denver is unique among events in terms of targeting devs. Generally less noise and more signal there. Yeah. Okay. Jesse, in terms of precedent, I would personally suggest this be treated like a PMO, project management office. Yeah. Jesse again, the proposal needs clearly defined goals, what success is, and then a review period by non-partisans after the fact to see if the goals were achieved. Perfect. Yeah, I think it's a good path forward.
great. So we'll look for the post on the discussion forum.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It seems like people are open to the idea, but just people wanting more details, fixed plan, an actual plan with deliverables and a process. So definitely can get something together for that in the forums. Yeah. Okay, I think that was the last item I had to discuss for today. Do we have a... Oh man, and we finished right before the end of the hour. I mean, you could tell. I think we made some changes here in the template, in the meeting format, some subtle changes. But look, I mean, we covered all these different things today. And is there anything left to cover? Did we miss anything? I don't think so. I think we covered everything here. Do you have anything else you want to discuss, Coder Dan? Or anybody else up here?
Good on my side. For next week, I would like to start a discussion about voting power. You guys can even see our voting power is so complicated right now, even Snapshot can't handle it. So I think there is a discussion to be had about potentially streamlining how we're doing voting power a little bit to pave the way for on-chain voting. But I'll try and prepare a little bit of something for next week. And then maybe we can revisit if there's any new thoughts on the bonding curve side, we can visit that once again. Maybe there'll be some new changes.
Okay, yeah, and I just remembered here, Chair. Thanks for reminding me, man. I appreciate that. Infinity Keys and Aavegotchi partnership. They have a forum post. Just go check it out. Infinity Keys is hoping to create a experience where you could have some onboarding and engagement through their product, and they deal with many different communities. And I think it could be a good way to cross pollinate a little bit and. Sort of like those treasure box missions that we did a couple months ago, something like that. Just look into their proposition there. We'll discuss it next week, and hopefully they're available on maybe like a Saturday hangout to come and discuss details of like what they're doing over at Infinity Keys and what the value proposition for Aavegotchi DAO could be. So definitely go check their post out and provide some feedback, and we can discuss. See, just reading a few last comments here. Just people talking about Eat Denver, going back and forth there. Yeah, we'll get more details out on there. We'll see you next Saturday there, Chair. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, sorry I didn't queue that up till the end there, but we'll definitely follow up on that. All right. I think that's our first DAO meeting of 2023. Let's keep it up. Let's keep things the way they're going here, and keep that growth mindset, keep improving, and 2023 is going to be big. I have a good feeling about this. We've kicked it off strong here. So.
Yep. Thanks so much for your work, sir, and thanks everyone for the awesome updates and just all the participation. 50 good friends here hanging out on a Sunday. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Maybe post Eat Denver, it'll be like 150. Let's hope.
Yeah. For next week, also, maybe some updates on the DAO. We were talking about this kind of the statement of purpose, and hopefully we'll also have some updates for you guys on the Constitution soon. That is currently also in draft mode, although we ran into the end of the year, so I think it was slower. But I know it is coming along.
Absolutely. Yeah, and actually we'll put that on our docket from the DAO side for next week. We have been kind of trying to put the Miro board together for the mission and values and all that stuff, and actually we should try and drill down into that, because that'll help us with our direction as well in terms of like actually a lot of the things we discussed here today. So absolutely. All right, everyone. Have a good weekend. We'll be on Twitter Spaces next week with Golden Cross Wednesday. I believe we usually hit it up around 9 p.m. Eastern. So next week, I think is going to be pertaining to sandbox partnerships and kind of the trailer or teaser that you got last week, or Saturday. And if we don't see you then, have a good weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Later.
Later, friends.